I feel like it's becoming increasingly harder to be somebody who is frugal because there are just too many things in this day and age that we can pay for out of convenience.
Oh my god, I don't feel like cooking tonight. I'll just DoorDash something. Oh, her outfit's so cute. I want a red sweater like that. And add to cart, it'll be here tomorrow. Man, the grass is getting pretty long out there. I'll just call someone cut it.
I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm just saying you have to try a little bit harder. So today I thought I would share with you some really easy, simple tweaks that you can make in your day-to-day and week-to-week life that can save you potentially hundreds every single month. So number one is to consider borrowing first. So when we talk about convenience, lots of times when we need something, our natural thought is just to purchase it. You can get pretty much anything you need delivered to your door in a day or two. But if you take a second to stop and ask yourself, is this something that I could just borrow? I recently gave an example of cake stands. I was hosting a birthday party. I needed 2 cake stands. I only own one. I could have very easily bought another one, but I don't really need to own 2 cake stands. So I ended up borrowing one from a friend, and then I was able to return that one back.
And at the end of the day, it really comes down to a convenience factor, because in order to borrow the cake stand, I had to get in my car and I had to drive to her house and pick it up, and then I had to return it to her. But I saved money and I saved excess clutter in my house of an extra cake stand that I didn't need.
And going off of that, one of my favorite tips to help curb online spending is to use the 1-week cart rule. Okay, so the way that the 1-week rule works is when you are shopping online, you can add something to your cart, but you're not going to purchase it except for 1 day a week. So you have 1 day a week where you check out your carts. What it does is it allows you to see all of the possible purchases for a week in one snapshot. And almost always when you do that, you will have a second where you say, I actually probably don't need all of this, because most likely the total at the bottom is a little more than you want to spend on like extra purchases this week. We don't always notice it when it's $10 here, $30 here, $15 here, but when it adds up for the week and you're like, wait, I have $200 in extra expenses, let me see what I can cut. Another thing happens when you add to cart over the period of a week is you might actually find alternative ways of getting something. One example is I was doing some canning and I had bought these cans that were too big to put in my stock pot. So I went online, like I do, I found a tall stock pot and I added it to my cart, and it was like brand new. I don't know, it was like 50 or 60 bucks, but I didn't cash out right then. The next day when I was running to get my kids, I had a little bit extra time. I passed the Goodwill and I was like, you know what, they probably have stock pots in there. So I stopped in really quick, and lo and behold, I found a huge size stock pot, perfect for canning, and it was $2.99. $2.99. Literally by just delaying myself for 24 hours, I saved myself like 50 bucks. There's something really interesting about online shopping, and there's been a lot of studies done about it, but in general, when we are shopping online, it actually is something that releases dopamine. So like it makes us feel good to buy things online, and so you have to be careful about that, and you have to be conscious of that. But a really interesting thing that they've learned about online shopping is that typically we are getting the dopamine from hitting checkout, from like purchasing the item, not from actually receiving the item. There's this really interesting studies that was done. I don't know if it was done on rats or monkeys. I don't know, don't quote me. Let's say it was a monkey. The monkey pressed the button, and when they pressed the button, they would get some sort of reward. And they did this for a little while, to the point where the monkey was able to anticipate that when they pressed the button, eventually they would get some sort of reward. It was like, I don't know, a biscuit. Do you give biscuits to monkeys? A snack, a fruit, a banana. Then they analyzed the monkey's brainwaves while they were doing this and realized the monkeys actually got a spike of dopamine when they pressed the button. And by the time they received the reward, the dopamine had started to decrease. This means that it's the anticipation of the reward that was giving them the rush of dopamine. And so online shopping can be the same way. I don't know if you've ever bought something, it was really exciting, like you loved doing the online shopping, but by the time the package actually arrived, you weren't as excited about it.
Spending is an addiction, and the sooner I was able to accept that and admit it, the easier it was to cut back and avoid falling into the old habits of overspending again.
So going off of my story about buying the pot from the Goodwill is to consider buying things secondhand first. Lots of times you can get things that are very gently used that are still just as good for a half or a quarter or even less of the original price of what the item was. You know, there's already so much stuff in the world, and I'm not gonna get all preachy about it. We all have stuff and we all buy stuff, and we don't need to like, you know, beat ourselves up about that. But when you are able and when you can, just thinking about something, buying something secondhand first and giving it a second life, as opposed to like adding more new stuff into the world. Another one is secondhand clothing. I will get my kids a lot of secondhand clothing because they go through things so fast. And I like to buy secondhand clothing myself, which is a great segue for me to tell you about the sponsor for today's video, which is ThredUp. ThredUp is personally my go-to spot for when I'm buying secondhand clothing. Every year I'm trying to be a little bit better about waste and about excess. And I am not perfect, but I feel like as long as I'm trying to do a little bit better every year, that's pretty good. And so what I love about ThredUp is it makes it really easy for me to buy the styles that I want to buy while also sort of decreasing my fashion footprint. Seeing as last spring I was still very early, newly postpartum, I wanted to add some new items to my wardrobe for spring this year. And so I turned to ThredUp first. And let me tell you, I scored pretty big this time. I got 2 Madewell dresses, both for under $20. I got this Free People dress for less than $25. And then I got a couple of light sweaters that are perfect for New England spring. This Free People one was only $27. This Zara one was under $15. And I even snagged a new pair of sandals for $16. I also grabbed some great things for my kids. I love secondhand for all kid things. I got my kids Hannah Anderson and Zara clothes, which I usually will never pay full retail for. I got them all for $8 to $15. I favorited a bunch of items on the ThredUp website.
You can shop all of my favorites and get 35% off your order plus free shipping using the link in the description down below and using the code Callie at checkout.
Another really great thing to do is to consider doing a weekly spending log. This is essentially like a food diary, but instead of writing down every single thing that you ate, you are going to write down every single purchase that you make. Certainly if you use just like a single debit or credit card, you could just pull up your transactions from the week as well, but most of us are using like maybe a debit card and a credit card or maybe cash or whatever. Besides the point, the idea is that you are writing down every single purchase that you make in a week. You're then able to really look at every single purchase that you spent for the entire week. And there will be some obvious outliers of things that you're like, I didn't really need that. Or just some aha moments where you realize that the little purchase, the little purchase, the little purchase actually end up adding up to a lot more than you really realize in the moment. It really just allows you to be honest and accountable for your spending. And I feel like by noticing habits that we have in our own spending, it just makes it easier for us to kick those habits. All right, next up is to check in on your conveniences in general. 2024, it is so easy to pay for convenience. When it comes to taking care of your home, you can have house cleaners and somebody who walks your dog, and somebody who does your laundry, somebody who preps your meals, somebody who's doing your garden, who's mowing your lawn. And there's nothing wrong with that. I use a lot of convenience services. We're busy people. I'm saying just check in on the conveniences you're paying for. Are you getting your money's worth? Okay, next up, when it comes to date night, consider doing date nights in. My husband and I very rarely do date night, I'm gonna be honest. I mean, with 3 kids, you gotta get a babysitter, and that's a whole cost. And then half the time we go out and we come home and we're like, I mean, it was fine, but I honestly would have enjoyed myself more if I had just done that at home. I feel like in my life, I've noticed that when I'm in the habit of going out, I go out more. It's sort of like the more I go out, the more I wanna go out, and the more I sort of focus on staying in, the easier it becomes. And it saves so much money. Okay, last 2 habits have to do with groceries in general, because I don't know about you, but groceries in food in general is a place in my budget that can really get out of whack really fast. So number 1 is to meal plan. Meal planning is the number 1 way I save money every single month. I make a plan for the entire week of what we are eating for our meals. I write down what days we are eating those things, and then we stick to it. If Thursday rolls around and we don't want it too bad, you still have to eat it. I'm gonna link my ultimate meal planning bundle below. This is a printable. It has a ton of printables in here to help you meal plan, but also my best tips and tricks on how to actually stick with meal planning and be successful doing it. I started meal planning when my first was like a year old, and I feel like it's definitely taken me a little bit of time, and I have learned some tips and tricks that make it a lot easier and make it so that I can stick to it. So, little shameless plug, but I will link this one in the description for you. If I meal plan and I follow the meal plan, it saves me easily $100 to $200 every single month, which I know seems dramatic, but as a family of 5, very quickly that budget can get out of whack if I'm not sticking to my meal plan. You get takeout one time, you're already at $50. And then that being said, when I meal plan, I order all of my groceries online, which I feel like people sometimes give me heat about because they think I'm being lazy. And I'm not gonna lie, some of it is because I really just don't have a lot of time to go into the grocery store and just leisurely walk the aisles, but The real reason I do it is because it does save me so much money. I make my meal plan, I know exactly what I need, I'm ordering just those things. I can easily take my time and shop around on the app to find the best prices on things. I usually make my meal plans on Fridays. I get my groceries on Mondays, so I have the entire weekend to sort of like add to my cart and make sure I have what I want. When I go into the grocery store, I always end up buying some random little snack or like something on the end cap that caught my eye. So buying my groceries online definitely saves me so much money. All right guys, that does it. Some like really easy little tweaks and just changes that you can make in your everyday life that if you follow them could end up saving you hundreds of dollars every single month. I'm all about little small changes and tweaks to make life easier. Sometimes doing something drastic is just too drastic, you know?
Also, don't forget to use my code Callie when you try ThreadUp to get 35% off your order plus free shipping.
As always, thank you so much for stopping by and watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Remember to be kind to yourself and others, and I will see you all in my next video.